You are listening to episode 67. You don't have to suffer through it on the Hungry Widow podcast with Tivana Gibbons. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Hungry Widow podcast. I am your host, Tivana Gibbons, beach lover, chocolate enthusiast, and resilient mama. My mission is to help you answer the question, what are you really, really hungry for in your life? Are you starving for meaningful relationships, more self-love and trust, a thriving family, perhaps adding travel to your itinerary? Together, we will discover and unveil our desires, one episode at a time. This is our space, our community, and our lives. Here we go. Hello, friend. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for joining me on the show today. I truly do look forward to connecting with you every week. I look forward to every Wednesday showing up and connecting with you and providing community and space. And if you're listening in real time, guess what? I've got some news to share. In about a week and a half, I will be leaving for my trip. The third week of October. No. The second week of October. I'll be leaving for Palm Springs, California, as well as Scottsdale and Sedona, Arizona. That is happening in about a week and a half, and I can't wait. In the Seattle area, we've been having more rain and more gray, and let me tell you, I don't mind the rain, but the gray can be very, very, very depressing. And so I can't wait to get into some California sun and some Arizona sun and be in community with some amazing women. So that's happening in a week and a half. I had to share that with you because you know how much I love to travel. So for today's show, I am sharing a message with you. Yes, a message on suffering. The message is that you do not have to suffer through it. I recently had a conversation with a dear friend, a person in my life who is a part of my circle and I cherish and adore and deeply respect her. And we had a conversation on a lot of things, but this part about suffering, I felt like I really needed to share this with you. So as we were in our conversation, she told me, Tivana, you know, you don't have to suffer through it. And I paused and I got real quiet as my body was leaning in to hear more, as well as my body was, pushing back at the same time to resist her words as well. But her words on suffering literally just jolted through my entire being with such potency and such power, with her telling me, you don't have to suffer through it. You see, my friend, suffering through it had become such a reoccurring theme in many different areas of my life that it just felt normal. Does that feel like that for you, possibly, on suffering, that it has just been happening for so long that it just feels normal, that you may not even know that you're just suffering through some things? Suffering through it was what I was taught also from a very young age. Is, a lot of role models in my life and a lot of people in my life, just, it was just a part of life from a very young age in terms of suffering through. Suffering through it was how I learned to get through most things, feeling like it just came with, the territory and just came with everything. Just, you always just have to have some suffering through it. Suffering through it sometimes also gave me a sense of pride that I was doing the right thing. If a lot of your examples are, people in your life that are constantly suffering through things. So when you as a child, you take on that. And then when you do suffer through and it feels like this sense of pride as well, if I'm being honest. There have been hundreds of times, okay, possibly thousands of times, maybe even millions of times, where I would rather not ask for help. I would rather accept less, or I'd rather hide or shrink and just suffer through that. Suffering through it has cost me greatly in a lot of different areas of my life. I think about how many times I have missed out on what I really, really wanted. I think about that. In life, it can be really helpful to gain some perspective from a safe, loving person in your circle that you trust. The key word, you have to be able to trust them. As my friend this loving friend of mine in my circle pointed out to me in the conversation that we were talking about, in terms of, she was able to point out to me suffering through this one situation. Like, you don't have to suffer through it, Tivana. So it can be really helpful to get some perspective from someone that you love and trust and that has your back. And I just want to say it again, you don't have to suffer through it. And this could be a big thing or this could be a small thing. Like, you don't have to suffer through things. And I am so grateful for this message that was delivered to me about suffering through it. And I wanted to share this with you as you are my lovely friend. And I want to ask you, is there any area in your life that could use a little less suffering? If you really think about that, is there any area in your life, big or small, maybe start with something small, that could use just a little less suffering? And it may feel normal. You may have to investigate, because if it's been happening for a while, it just may feel normal. But maybe you have this inkling that it just doesn't feel right. So is there some area in your life that could use a little less suffering? It's worth it to take some time to investigate, because we don't have to suffer. After talking to my dear friend, I was reminded again of my dreams, my goals, how I want to show up in this world, how I want my life to be for myself and for my family, and that I don't have to suffer. I don't have to suffer now. I don't have to suffer in the future. I don't have to suffer ever through anything. As we wrap up today's show, my dear friend, as always, I do hope that today's message was helpful and useful. I really, really, really appreciate you pressing play and listening again to the show this week. Okay, have a great week. Until next time, I will see you next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to the Hungry Widow podcast. It is truly an honor and privilege to provide this community to you. Show notes for this episode can be found at TivanaGibbons.com. Also, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. Remember, the conversation continues in the free Facebook group, The Hungry Widows Collective. Join me next week for another episode.